had a brief meeting with Diane when I first came in, and she said, "Now, Joe," she said, "I know you got cattle on the farm." She goes, "Think about that big longhorn bull you got." I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, think about that big bull you got out on that farm." She goes, "You know, they got those big horns. There's a point here and a point here." She said, "I want you to leave the bull out of the middle." So, Diane, I'll do my best to do that tonight and stay on time. I've got to acknowledge one of Missouri's great CAFO fighters here. I don't know where Terry's sitting, but where's Terry Spence? I just want to... There's Terry. Want to say hi to Terry. Thank you, Terry. It's an honor to work with Terry back home, and Terry works with SRAP across the country, and it's good to be with him tonight. And I also want to call out a couple of my colleagues. The chair of our Humane Society of the United States Ag Councils here, Chris Peterson, somewhere. Chris, thank you. And a new guy joining, not a new guy to politics, but a new guy to the Humane Society, our new state director, Josh Skipworth, sitting down here. Josh, one of y'all's folks. Now, I'm going to get to the point, and I'm going to get there. But I want to say, if I say something, you say, "I'd like to have more information about that," I want you to see Josh tonight. He's got some sheets of paper. You can put your contact information down, and we'll make sure we get you the information that you're asking for. Because one of the things I know, if we're going to make a difference, we got to feel empowered, and to do that, we need the information to feel confident to charge the front line, right? I can't ask you to get out of that foxhole and charge the enemy unless I arm you. And I'm going to arm you with information. That's the first step for success in stopping the CAFO development in Iowa. I'm a fourth-generation family farmer, and that's the thing I'm most proud of besides being called dad by two beautiful young girls. My brother's back home farming. He lets me do this. I have a twin brother named Steve, and I give him a shout out. He's a true American family farmer. I'm proud to be a member of the Humane Society of the United States, an organization that's taking strong strides nationally to make a more humane economy in many aspects, to include supporting humane, sustainable agriculture. Since I started farming, there are 1 million fewer of us, Chris Peterson. When I started farming, just in the hog industry, I'm not a pork producer. I want to make that clear right off. I don't raise pork chops. I raise hogs. I'm a hog farmer. When we took the animal out of the equation and made beef producers and pork producers, we went south in the wrong direction. We went to hell in a handbasket on the farm. I'm a hog farmer. There's an animal on my farm, not a pork chop. In the hog industry, when I started farming, there were about 600,000 of us farming hogs in America. In the last census, there were 62,000 of us left. They drove us off the land and caged and crated our animals. At the same time, the American farmer has been paying into these checkoff programs. I'm required, every time I sell an animal, to give money to NPPC so they can lobby against my family farm. Every time cattleman sells a calf, he pays in to the beef checkoff program so NCBA can lobby against country of origin labeling, so they can lobby against the GIPSA changes so that the poultry farmers will still be slaves on their poultry farms working for the vertical integrator. 1 million fewer American farmers, more animals caged and crated. You're the largest pork producer in the United States. You also are the largest egg producer. I'm a farm boy. Darn proud of it. I'm going to tell you something. This is the space about 280 million laying hens get their entire life. And there's a bunch of them in your state. You go in those dang barns, they're stacked on top of each other. They're put in there. They don't even have eyes on them most of their lives. You eat the next darned egg for breakfast, and if it's not from a cage-free or pastured program, you need to not eat the egg. Who would have thought in America when I started farming that I would have to worry about my tap water? This country gives away millions and billions of dollars so people around the world can have potable water, and I'm all for that. What's a disgrace in America is not long ago in our alliance that I'm part of, the HSUS is with Diane and Chris and a bunch of you in this room. Boone County here had too high nitrites. No one even warned the women who were pregnant that the water, the tap water that they were drinking, could harm their child. In America, 7 people in Toledo last year got ill from drinking the tap water. The waterworks in Des Moines having to sue the watersheds so that their taxpayers don't have to pay millions of dollars to clean the hog manure out of the tap water. When I started farming, I would have never dreamed of the day when Americans had to worry about the safety of the water when they turned on the tap. 1 million fewer farmers. Animals living in this size of a space, and Americans not safe with their drinking water anymore. What a disgrace. I'm a farmer and I'm darn proud of it. How many farmers do we have in the audience today? God bless you. God bless the American farmer. What's happened? How did this happen? Well, I don't have time to tell you all about it, or Diane will get the big hook out and drag me off the stage. Just understand that through a series of presidents and congressional leaders, we found ourselves in worse shape than we were when Upton Sinclair in 1906 wrote The Jungle. When Teddy Roosevelt said he was going to bust up those trusts, the Packers Trust. At that time, the CR4, the concentration ratio of the 4 largest packers in the country was a little over 42 to 44%. Today, the least amount is 61%. They have a lock on the marketplace, and they're abusing that market power, driving farmers from the land, caging the animals, polluting our drinking water. They're abusing their power when it comes to the neighbors. One of the speakers already talked a little bit about this, but the fact is what about my rights? I'm so tired of a couple of these farm organizations, I'm going to not name them maybe, talking about property rights and the rights to do this. What about my rights? In Missouri, the Farm Bureau pushed, well, it's in Missouri, that's Farm Bureau, they pushed to take away the ability of neighbors to sue under the nuisance laws. Isn't that right, Spears Law Firm? Because the people had a right to build a CAFO on their farm. In the last 2.5 years, there are 14 CAFOs built within 2 miles of my homestead, where there were none before the legislature did that. I want to tell you about that homestead. My brother lives in that house. My granddad built that house 1 year after him and Grandma got married. Now, Grandma always said it was an accident, but the house burned down, the first homestead burned down because the lantern got too close to the curtain. Grandma said it was an accident. Grandpa never argued with her. He just built her a new home. She was a little Irish woman. Grandpa was pretty smart. My dad was born in that home. My granddad died in that home while I was sitting at the kitchen table. We'd gone over to stay with Grandma and Grandpa. Grandpa had cancer, and we moved in with them. My dad died within 10 feet of where he was born. He always said he never wanted to leave the farm, and except for a short stint in the Army, God granted him that blessing. We've been there longer than most of the neighbors. But yet the legislature in Missouri tells me I don't have any darn property rights. That all that heritage and those deep roots in that ground just really don't matter. You smell this poop. And the legislature passed the law. Abuse of power. Smell the poop. You don't have property rights. Only those that want to build these industrial factory farms have rights in America today. Abuse of power in our capitals. That's where I really want to drill down. I've already talked about NCBA and NPPC. They take our checkoff dollars and they make sure the right people get elected to expand the opportunity. So the only rights are the rights to expand CAFOs across Iowa and Missouri. They're strong fighting the Farmers Union. John Hanson, a good friend of mine, he's still fighting to keep the ban on the packer ownership of livestock in Nebraska. You lost it here, and you went from like 38 permits for CAFOs to where now you have almost 8,000 CAFOs. Your legislature did that. John Hanson always says about these corporations, and you know we now let them in our constitutions in Missouri. They're trying to do it in Oklahoma. John Hanson, a good friend from Nebraska, says the problem with corporations and letting them into your constitution or into your capital with their money is that they don't have a soul to save or an ass to kick. Abuse in our capitals. You know, talked about the regulators, and regulators sometimes can only do that which the law allows them to do. In Missouri, we're fighting a 10,000 sow unit coming into Callaway County, and Terry's been active in that. But the reality is, with what the legislature's changed the laws, our Clean Water Commission's hands are tied. There's only so much that we're going to be able to do. Tell you a little bit about the corporate power in your elections. I have this written down because I don't want to goof it up, because I got a lot of respect for elected officials, having been one. And I'm going to speak a little bit about your governor, Governor Branstad, and I want to make sure I get this right. First of all, I come here tonight to tell Governor Branstad that when a sow is in a gestation crate, she doesn't have any babies with her. That's a farrowing crate. Now, why? What you're saying, what's he talking about? Your governor advised the governor of New Jersey to veto that darn gestation crate bill because that mama pig would crush her babies. He said he'd grown up around the farm and he knew that. Gestation, governor, it's when they're pregnant, not when they have babies. There's no babies in a gestation crate. It's where we lock a mama sow up 2 feet by 7 feet cage, and that's where she lives her entire life, except when she's in a 2 foot by 7 foot farrowing crate. And that's humane? I don't think so. They only get to stand up, lie down, take 1 step forward, 1 step back their entire lives. So he's a little confused. I just thought I'd mention that to him. Hopefully he gets the message. I tried to say it loud enough where he could hear me. he gets elected again as your governor in 2010. One of the first things he did was he eliminated 100 positions at your DNR. Yep. One of the chief enforcers at the time was, I may get his name wrong and I apologize to Wayne Gieselman. And he's quoted as saying at the time that if we could be on site on a more regular basis, producers would know we're watching and we could have greater enforcement. Shortly thereafter, then Governor Branstad tells Roger Land, an attorney for the Iowa Farm Bureau, whom he had just appointed the director of DNR, that he wanted Gieselman gone. And within the week, Gieselman was gone. 2000, you had 38 permits for CAFOs. Like I said, and what's been said before, you have almost 8,000 of them now. You had a governor that made sure there was nobody going to stop it. To support the boom, governors, your governor and other governors have gone to China to encourage China to export, allow us to export pork to China. Mother Jones magazine a couple of years ago asked the question, is the U.S. becoming the factory farm for China? And I think the answer is yes. They've polluted up to about 40% of their arable acreage in China. They didn't have any environmental standards when they decided to become an industrialized nation, and they polluted up and pooped up their farmland. They're in desperate need to feed their people. So they come over here, and part of their 5-year food plan is to buy out Smithfield, for which they did. And they're now our largest pig producer in the United States. This concentration ratio I was telling you about, it's actually controlled by foreign countries and foreign corporations. The largest beef producer in the United States is JBS, Brazilian. Poultry, JBS, Brazilian. Pork, China, Smithfield. So when your legislators are voting to support this industrial model, they're not even supporting U.S. corporations, let alone U.S. farmers. They're supporting multinational corporations in a large globalization program that will pollute up the United States as we attempt to feed the world in an unsustainable model. Now, the other thing I know about folks when we're getting ready to charge, if you don't know this, we're getting ready to charge. You know, if you hadn't figured this out, this is like, you know, the moment before you're told to jump over the parapet and charge. If you didn't know that, well, you shouldn't have signed up, because that's what you're getting ready to do, okay? You're the Army. Look around. Yep, you're it. So I know we're going to arm you with facts, the truth. We're going to be able, Josh is going to be able to help you get any information you want. I'll make sure he gets it and gets it to you. Just make sure we have your name and your contact information. The gang here at JFAN, don't forget to put the money in the envelopes. The folks at JFAN have a list you'll have, and we're going to ask you to pick an item. We're going to arm you. We're going to ask you to take action. The other thing I know is important to you is a lot of times there's this sense of hopelessness. Well, Joe, I believe you. I know it's true. And it's sad. But there's just nothing else we can do. And some folks say, well, this is just the way it's going to be. It's just big's better. It's going to get bigger. Well, I want to stomp on that myth right now. Big is not better. Iowa State has a study out, the most, at 60 sows, not 10,000, God love you, 60 sows, you reach peak efficiency on a farm. Iowa State has that study. Because you have to hire more people, you got the manure to manage, 60 sows. Next thing, there are 7 researchers at Iowa State that a year and a half ago completed a study, a research study, 7-year-long study. And I'm going to read this just so I don't goof this up, and we can get it to you, or you can go to Iowa State EDU News. And it was a project. It was completed. It's been published in the journal. It's a real research project, not some phony, liberal, crazy thing. These are real researchers. So don't let them try to tell you that you're crazy. One of yours, an agronomist, Matt Liebman, Iowa State University. Yeah, somebody, let's give him applause, because I'll tell you what, Dr. John Eichert's here somewhere. Where's Dr. Eichert? Hi, Dr. John Eichert. Another good friend of mine from Missouri is a guy by the name of Bill Heffernan, and he's not here, but this gentleman and Dr. Eichert's and the Heffernans, they pay a heck of a price to put out the truth, because they're then marginalized in their community. And people try to hush them up because the big chemical companies don't want the truth out there. So you bet you need to applaud these researchers in your state. They, 7-year study, found substantial improvements in environmental sustainability of agriculture are achievable now without sacrificing food production or farmer livelihoods, and by using lower quantities of pesticides and herbicides. And the key to the success can be summed up in one word: diversity. They used a 4-crop rotation with animal manure, solid manure, as part of the project, and proved that it was more efficient and more profitable than putting all those gosh darn chemicals on the ground to watch them run off into your drinking water and charge you millions of dollars so you can have safe tap water. So when you walk in and they're sitting and you're getting ready to pull pistols on them, you look them in the eye, you're armed with the truth. And it's not some hokey-pokey thing. These are real researchers from a very fine institute, along with the Leopold Center here in Iowa. I use their studies and their research constantly around this country because it's the real evidence that there can be an alternative. We already heard about the organic alternatives and the different ways we can farm organically, non-GMO farming. You know, all of that is a possibility, and it can be a reality if we simply demand it. UC Davis, California, just came out with a study showing that we can feed America within 100 miles of where you live. We can feed everyone in this country within 100 miles of where that person lives. UC Davis, the University of California, not some quack Joe Maxwell out there on his pig farm dreaming of that day. No, sir, these are real researchers. What can you do? Well, but for you, we're done. The majority of your great citizens in this state want what you want. They want clean water. They want clean air. They want good neighbors. They want traditional family farmers to thrive. They want to go to those farms. They want to share that experience. They want to be part of their food system. They want to know where their food comes from. They want to know how it was raised. They don't want chickens in less than a notebook-sized piece of paper, living their entire lives. They don't want sows in gestation crates 2 foot by 7 foot. They want to be able to take their kids fishing where their grandpa took them. They don't want those streams barren of all life. The majority of your citizens in your state, the majority of the citizens in my state. I have done work all over this country. I'll tell you, the majority of the citizens in every state agree with us. Then how does the governor in this state and this legislature and my legislature get elected? Sometimes it's because we don't engage. In the animal welfare movement, 25% of the folks that claim to be in the animal welfare movement aren't even registered to vote. I would bet in this room there's probably 400 people here. There's probably 15 or 20 of you that aren't registered to vote. Some of you don't even know you're not registered to vote because you moved. So make sure you're registered to vote. The next thing that really gets them the power is what is diversionary tactics. Let me tell you how this works. They're masters at this, by the way. You know who your enemy is? Those darned animal welfare people. Those environmentalists. That's what they tell the farmers. They're going to drive you off the farm. What's this waterway darn stuff about? It's going to put you out of business. All the time they're telling farmers out there that, and farmers are thinking they got to oppose environmentalists and they got to oppose the darn animal welfare people, and 1 million of us are driven off the land by the very people telling us who we ought to be fearing. Diversionary tactics. Saying the boogeyman's over here when it's staring you right in the eye. And on the animal welfare side, not accepting that there's good farmers. Environmentalist side, not accepting that there's good farmers. Assuming that every farmer is bad. I tell folks, if we're going to really win this fight, first thing we got to do is meet people where they are. And we got to find common ground. The animal welfare movement, how many of you in this room are vegan or vegetarian? Wayne Pacelli contacted me and he said he wanted me to go to work for HSUS. And Big Ag had begun to paint the Humane Society of the United States as this against all animal agriculture. You may have heard some of those rumors. And so he said, you know, it's going to be tough. I'd like to have you come out and help build out some farm communities and get involved as a farmer in this. And he told me, he said, I said, well, I don't know, Wayne. I said, you don't know me? And he said, well, I've been checking about you. And he said, the best way to know me is read my book, The Bond. And so he sent me a manuscript that hadn't been printed yet. In the last chapter, something called The Humane Economy. And it's in there, Wayne says that he renewed his commitment along with the World Animal Welfare Council to end factory farming by 2050. And I told Wayne, I said, that's something I can sign up for. I said, you may have a large number of vegans and vegetarians in your organization, but I said, we can find common ground on ending factory farming. And then in 2050, we'll figure out whether we all ought to be vegan or vegetarian. I said, what the heck? I can raise beans. Doesn't mean I don't get to be in agriculture. Finding the common ground. Putting aside our differences. Building a coalition. It is money, but it's also about joining together. Putting aside our differences. Joining together. Becoming the point of the spear. And driving straight through our opponents. Enough people in this room to elect a state representative. Do you know if your state representative will support a moratorium on CAFOs in Iowa? If not, you need to ask them. And if they don't, you need to find a candidate. And you need to run that candidate with everything you have. Because for us to win, we need to elect people in our state capital, in our federal capital. We need to elect people that support our values and our vision and a food policy for America that provides justice for the neighbors, the animals, and gives grace to our great planet so that we can all be neighbors across this great country. I love you. Thank you for all that you do.